Hi, I'm Kate from dailytarotgirl.com, and in this video we are going to be diving into the Empress. So I'm going to tell you what the Empress is all about. I'm going to point out some key symbols to pay attention to. I'm going to tell you what the dark side of the Empress is, and then we're going to dive into three main themes of the Empress. I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be giving you journaling questions to ponder, and we're really going to dive deep into this card, and we're going to take a really up close and personal look at the Empress to see what she's all about and how she shows up in our day-to-day lives. So before we dive into the video, I post these videos every week. I'm working my way through the major arcana. So if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, click like, and leave me a comment. So the Empress, oh, I love the Empress. So she is basically this mother goddess archetype. Now the image of the Empress that I'm showing you right now is from the Universal Waite Tarot. And some versions will depict her as being pregnant, so like a big pregnant belly. This particular version, we can't really tell if she's pregnant because she's wearing a loose flowy gown, so we can't tell. But she basically represents that sort of mother goddess archetype. She is really good at nurturing, at being receptive. She's mastered that fine art of receptivity. She has also mastered the art of allowing. So allowing things to unfold, allowing people to be as they are. She knows how to sit back, relax, and go with the flow. She also represents creativity and abundance. There is no such thing as lack or limitation in the Empress's universe. And she is a very creative character in the tarot, whether that is through fertility, so actual physical, being creative with your physical body, or other forms of creativity. All right, so some key symbols that I want to point out on this card that will help you remember what the Empress is all about are the garden and nature that she is surrounded by. So we see trees, there's wheat, some flowers, there's a stream. She's reclining in this chair in her garden, surrounded by nature. And nature and the Empress kind of go hand in hand. Think of a garden in spring. Everything's coming into bloom, into flower, or even in summer when the trees are bearing fruit. That is the Empress, the energy and essence of the Empress being expressed in nature. So she's surrounded by this abundant, beautiful garden. The stream that's running through that garden is another important symbol. So you can think of it as a stream or a river, and it represents flow and the Empress's ability to go with the flow and allow things to just flow and be as they are. And then last but not least is her relaxed pose. So she's reclining on her throne. She's holding what I always think of as being like a doobie. It's not, but that's what I think of it as being. And she's reclining and she's relaxed. And that really is the key to understanding the Empress. She is relaxed, she's laid back, she doesn't break a sweat, she lets the magical mystery of the universe flow to her. She nurtures, the things that are important to her and lets the rest go. Okay, so let's talk about her dark side a little bit, because no matter how wonderful and how positive a tarot card is, every tarot card has a dark side. And the dark side is really just basically, so a tarot card usually represents a particular archetype or an energy. And the dark side is what happens when that energy is out of balance and isn't flowing right. So the dark side of the Empress is laziness. So she is so good at being relaxed and going with the flow, But if that is taken to the extreme, or if that relaxation and go with the flow type energy becomes toxic, it becomes lazy and entitled. She's so good at being receptive, but taken in the extreme, receptivity can become entitlement and greediness. She can be unappreciative. Think of like a woman who, wants to be supported by others, but just wants to recline on her chaise lounger, eating bonbons. That's kind of the dark side of the Empress. Now, I normally wouldn't really touch on the dark side of the Empress, typically when this card shows up in a reading, but it really depends on where the card is in the reading. So let's say the Empress shows up in a negative position in the spread. Like say you ask yourself, what do I need to let go of in my life? And you get the Empress. That's an example of a positive card showing up in a negative position. So you may want to touch on the darker aspects of that card in that circumstance. Okay, so let's dive even deeper into the Empress. So the first theme that, and there's 3 different themes that I'm going to be diving into with the Empress. The first theme is abundant creativity. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as lack in the Empress's universe. And she knows how to connect to that creative spirit and the abundant energy of the universe. And like I said, quite often she'll be depicted as being pregnant, so she'll be sort of, and that's kind of like a physical symbol of abundant creativity. So the question I have for you, the question I should say that the Empress has for you is, what do you want to birth into the world? So what do you want to essentially create? What do you want to bring into the world to share with others? What do you want your contribution to humanity to be? And this is an interesting question to ponder. And keep in mind that you may, depending on, when you ask yourself this question, you may think of something really big and grand, or it might be something smaller and more subtle. The next question is a little easier to answer, and it is, what do you want to create right now? Like today or this week? And it could be like, maybe you want to bake cookies or make a casserole. Maybe you're working on an art piece or painting. Maybe you're working on a piece of writing, or maybe you want to create more love in your life or more peace, more relaxation. But what do you want to create right now? And when you ask yourself that question and start to ponder it, you immediately tap into the energy of the Empress. So the next thing that the Empress is all about is nurturing. The Empress, in being this sort of mother goddess type archetype, is naturally really good at nurturing. She knows how to nurture without being overbearing. So think of a mother who, is really good at nurturing her offspring, providing love and support and guidance, but also knows when to step back and let her children grow and make their own decisions. And she allows them the space to do that. So the Empress is good at nurturing, but she also knows how to do it without being smothering. Now, we nurture things with our actions, with our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our words, and our energy. So ask yourself, and this is a really interesting question, what are you nurturing in your life right now? What are you putting your energy, your time, your focus on? And the interesting thing is, we're always nurturing something, whether we realize it or not. Just like when we talked about the magician last week, or was it? No, it's the week before that. When we talked about the magician, the wisdom of the magician was that You're always manifesting something, whether you realize it or not. And the Empress has a similar message in that you're always nurturing something, whether you're aware of it or not. So what are you nurturing in your life? And the Empress's power lies in her ability to nurture. And I kind of want to compare her a little bit to the Magician here, because the Magician's power lies in his ability to manifest and take action. The Magician has a more Yang-like approach to things, where he, makes to-do lists and he gets out in the world and he does things and he takes action and he makes things happen. Whereas the Empress takes more of a laid-back kind of yin approach to things. Her power is in her ability to nurture. So it's like she kind of sits back, she allows the magnificence of the universe to flow to her, and then she decides what she's going to nurture and what she's going to neglect or simply not nurture, what she's going to put her energy into. All right, so one more thing I want to say before we move on is that the Empress is so important to be able to give your creations the freedom to grow however they wish to not be too attached to them. So whenever you're in that creative flow, the one thing that's gonna block the creative flow is if you become too worried about how people are gonna receive your creation and what people are gonna think, or how that creation is going to unfold once it has a life of its own. So another question I have for you is, what would you like to grow in your life right now? And how can you nurture that? So regardless of whether it's something really specific that you want to grow or something more vague, what can you do to nurture that and provide the right environment for that thing to take root and blossom and flourish? So the next area, the next realm of the Empress is receptivity and allowing. So the Empress is really good at going with the flow, allowing things to be as they are, allowing people in her life to be who they are. And she doesn't get her panties in a bunch all that often. She's not prone to stress. She's very relaxed, laid back, accepting. She's very open to life and open to what flows towards her. It doesn't mean she says yes to everything, because remember, she decides what she's going to nurture, but she's open to things. I like to use the analogy of the gardener when I'm talking about the Empress. So, and you might know someone like this. Picture, a garden that is totally manicured, like a very uptight kind of garden where it's, there's not a weed in sight. It's perfectly manicured. All the shrubs are pruned, in a uniform kind of way. Nothing's overgrown or out of place. There's no dead leaves anywhere. It's just like perfect. The gardener who takes care of this garden is very uptight and very organized. Now imagine walking into like a secret garden that's a little bit overgrown and wild looking. And you can tell that it's being taken care of. Someone's coming in, they're watering, they're doing a little bit of weeding here and there. Like, it's not totally wild, but things are kind of doing their own thing, and it has this mystical, beautiful kind of enchanted quality. That would be the Empress's garden. That is the kind of gardener she is. She plants the seeds, she nurtures her plants, she takes care of them without being overly involved. So the question that the Empress has for you is, in your life, are you like the uptight gardener who has a perfectly manicured garden, or are you more like the Empress gardener who allows things to be a little bit overgrown? And if you feel like sharing in the comments, please feel free to share this with me. Please feel free to let me know. Are you the uptight gardener where everything has to be perfect, everything has to have a place, everything has to be planned out, or are you more like the Empress gardener? And it's okay to be either. You maybe are in the middle too. All right, so if you were tapped into this allowing energy of the Empress, what would you do differently? So if you allowed life to just unfold, if you allowed people in your life to be who they are without trying to change them, if you allowed yourself to simply be who you are, if you simply just allowed your creations and your projects to unfold and take on a life of their own, if you're able to kind of step back and be more relaxed and kind of go with the flow, what would you do differently in your life? And this is a tricky question, and it's definitely one you might want to, set aside some time to ponder, but it's a really interesting question to journal on. Because when you start to tap into that allowing energy, when you start to let go, you're really embodying the Empress, the spirit of the Empress. So the wisdom of the Empress is she knows how to relax. She knows how to go with the flow. She's open to life as it is. She allows the abundance of the universe to flow through her. And this is what's interesting about the Empress. This is where her wisdom comes in. The Empress is receptive, but not passive. So receptivity isn't the same as passivity. So she's able to sit back, allow life to flow to her, and then she decides what she's going to pick and choose to put her energy and nurturing and attention on. It kind of makes me think of, I've never been to a restaurant like this, but I've seen it in movies, like when, and I think it's usually like sushi restaurants where they'll have like a conveyor belt with different dishes on, and you sit there and these dishes go by you and you kind of pick and choose what dishes you want. That's kind of how the Empress is. She allows life to flow through her, and then she picks and chooses what she wants to put her nurturing attention on. She doesn't lift a finger or break a sweat like the magician does. And she knows that once she nurtures something and once it grows, it's going to take on a life of her own, a life of its own. And that's going to require kind of sitting back and letting go of her creations. All right, so that has been our deep dive into the Empress. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned lots. In the comment section below, let me know, what is one way that you can channel your inner Empress today? Because remember, all of us have these qualities of the Empress inside ourselves, whether we're choosing to channel those energies or not. So what is one way that you can channel the energy of the Empress today? Also, again, I'm going to post next week. I'm going to do the Emperor. So stay tuned for that. I feel like the Emperor is one of the most misunderstood cards in the tarot. So we're going to dive deep into him next week, and hopefully he won't be so misunderstood after that. So don't forget to subscribe, like, leave me a comment, and check out my site, dailytarotgirl.com. I'll put the link to my site in just below the video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.